Hey guys, welcome back to the land of books and movies. A few months ago, I was browsing the horror lit subreddit and stumbled across an interesting looking post. And what hooked my attention at the time, well, at the moment, was all the controversy around the subject matter of the book and the character creation. This writer took a lot of crap about that, as if what he wrote was true and not fiction. So naturally, I just had to read it because at the end of the day, it's a book and I do books. So, with the writer's blessing and not too many spoilers, here's the review of Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell. Now, the main character of Stolen Tongues is Felix himself. How truthful or fictional from real life to book, I do not know. But in Stolen Tongues, he's working on his PhD in English and he's just got engaged to his long-term girlfriend. And before we get into it, two constants that we are frequently reminded of about this couple is that Faye sleepwalks and Felix hates vomit. Now, before I get any further, let me touch on the prologue for just a minute. One of Felix's longtime friends has a parrot that was an endless source of amusement. Emphasis on was. They had all gotten used to the parrot's antics, mimicking people, pulling fast ones, until an out of town vacation and some strange occurrences silenced this bird forever. But that is not to suggest something killed the parrot. What happened was that the parrot said something. It repeated something that no one in the house had ever said, and it never said a word for the rest of its life. Now, advancing to the beginning of this story, Felix and Faye are newly engaged and celebrating at her parents' cabin in the mountains of Colorado. They get settled in, and the book wastes no time getting into the weird shit. Before nightfall, they find what appears to be a dream catcher, but it's an ugly dream catcher. Pretty dream catchers are, relatively symmetrical and aesthetic. They have feathers and beads. This dream catcher that they found is awkward and gruesome. It's made with bones and sinew. It's basically a disarticulated corpse. Anyway, after they, go to bed, the fun begins. They hear voices, familiar ones, and familiar ones too. They have a look outside and they see strange people sitting on their vehicle. And they get out of there ASAP and call the authorities the next day, who go up there and they see footprints in the snow, but just shrug it off as local teenagers messing with them. Back home, Faye is still unsettled and living with this. She's sleepwalking more and even chanting in her sleep. She's also contorting in freaky ways, similar to those in The Exorcism of Emily Rose. And she's coughing up this oily black shit. And she left her engagement ring at the cabin. Felix had, before that, um, kind of gotten in touch with a man and his son who know the tribal spiritual lore of the area where the cabin is. And so at this point in the book, I'm thinking, okay, we've got an Indian burial ground curse, but it's not that simple. So Felix makes his way back to the cabin with the help of this man and his son. They find another gruesome dream catcher. And before I get too further, let me just correct myself. Dreamcatcher is made of animal bones, not people. Anyway, at nightfall, it's a more intense onslaught of surrounding voices and apparitions. And at the forefront of it, a humanoid being that is like overshadowed. And it looks like a patchwork person made of all kinds of it's like a patchwork person, the legs don't match, the arms don't match, the torso is funny, and the face, it's not shown until much, much later. And that's something I'm not going to spoil. You've got to read it to, get the gist of the face of this creature. Anyway, This being is identified by, Felix's, guide and his son as the imposter. And it's obsessed with Faye and the number 5 for reasons revealed later. I'm trying to keep the spoilers to a minimum. Felix finds the engagement ring and gets it back home, and Faye seems fine for a day or so, but she isn't. I'm going to get to the point and stop there because I don't want to spoil it. The imposter imprinted on Faye at the time of her utmost grief that is still repressed. Overall, for a horror novel at only 308 pages, there are many layers to it that set it apart from cookie cutter haunted house or sacred burial ground stories that I thought this would be. Also, how often does a writer insert himself into it as the main character? And what is the inspiration behind it? When I came across this on the Horror Lit subreddit, Felix had volunteered a little about himself, but not enough to say that he completely plugged his real self or his, you know, goal self, that he wants to someday be into this story. A lot of the gripes he says he was subject to in this post suggest that his harshest critics were coming at him with a lot of, whinging about a lack of political correctness. Where's the strong female lead? You got this wrong about Native American lore, blah, blah, blah. My take on it is let fiction be fiction. Enjoy it or don't. I do recommend it if you like a quick paced story with many layers. And that is my take on Stolen Tongues. Thank you for joining me again this week. Please consider subscribing if you don't already. Don't forget, to smash that like button, share, leave a comment, and check out my affiliates. And see you next book and movie.